Divinely revealed. 7 miraculous reasons why the most enlightened souls seek sacred solitude. In the quaint village of Wellingford, nestled among lush green hills, there lived a woman named Margaret who was as devoted to her faith as she was to her community. Known for her nightly prayers at the chapel, she was a beacon of hope, lighting the path for those lost in darkness. But now a shadow hung over Wellingford. A sudden outbreak of illness had swept through the village, leaving its residents despondent and fearful. Darkness settled in where once joy had flourished. With anguish in their hearts, villagers whispered tales of despair. But Margaret, with unwavering faith, felt an undeniable calling to seek sacred solitude. She remembered the whispers of her patron saint, stories passed down through generations of a prayer mountain nearby, where miracles had once taken place. As Margaret journeyed onward, the air thickened with anticipation. Each step echoed the prayers uttered by countless souls before her. The mountain beckoned her with promises of divine encounters. Yet, as the weight of the world felt heavier on her shoulders, a flutter of doubt curled in her heart. Could her prayers truly heal her ailing neighbors? Upon reaching the mountain, Margaret found a tranquil spot, bathed in the soft glow of dawn. She bowed her head, eyes closed, and poured out her soul. The silence enveloped her, broken only by the gentle rustle of leaves, a symphony of nature that seemed to respond to her pleas. As she prayed, the presence of divine peace wrapped around her, providing warmth and comfort. Then, suddenly, her prayers were met with a resounding affirmation. A close sister from her prayer group stood before her, a miraculous glow illuminating her healed figure. Tears of joy streamed down Margaret's face as hope sparked within her. But the journey didn't stop there. An estranged family, scattered by misunderstanding, found themselves coming together under the warmth of Margaret's prayers, rekindling bonds once thought lost. She grasped the essence of faith, understanding its ability to mend hearts and heal souls. Yet, amidst such divine manifestations, Margaret received a prophetic vision, an overwhelming message believed to hold the key to revival. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Despite the miraculous events, disbelief clouded her community. Some villagers, overwhelmed by their suffering, rejected Margaret's testimony, scoffing at her fervent claims. She returned to the chapel, her voice trembling as she shared her experiences, but her heart remained resolute amidst the skepticism. Tension surged through Wellingford as divided opinions clashed. Could a simple woman's sacred solitude channel the power of God in a world so gripped by fear? As whispers of doubt grew louder, Margaret held onto her faith tightly, believing even the smallest act could spark miraculous change. The chapel began to fill as villagers debated the interpretation of her accounts. Yet, with each testimony shared of healing and redemption, a flicker of revival ignited a long-lost hope. Yet one final question loomed, heavy in the air. Would the village clamor for light or surrender to darkness? And as Margaret stood firm, her heart raced with anticipation. She felt the weight of change stirring, waiting for its moment. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden hue over Wellingford, the atmosphere felt electric with tension. Margaret stood before the gathered villagers in the chapel, her heart full but her spirit shaken. Those faces, once animated with laughter, now wore an expression of wariness. She could feel their skepticism like a weight pressing down. With every testimony she had shared, she hoped to kindle faith in their hearts. Yet, the murmurs of doubt rose higher, drowning out the whispers of hope clinging to the rafters of the chapel. How can you believe in miracles? They questioned, eyes searching for evidence in the palpable absence of immediate healing. How can prayer banish the darkness? In that moment of uncertainty, Margaret prayed deeply within herself. Lord, grant me wisdom. A warmth began to envelop her, and she remembered the words she often prayed. Faith as small as a mustard seed could move mountains. Encouraged by this thought, she lifted her voice above the rumble of doubt. Miracles don't always come in the form we expect, she exclaimed, her eyes shining with fervor. But they are born from our belief. Each of us carries a spark of the divine within. What if our doubts blind us to the healing that is quietly unfolding around us? Silence fell over the crowd, curiosity mingling with skepticism. They remained still, as if the air itself had thickened, drawing them closer together. Hope flickered faintly in the eyes of some, while others still looked away, grappling with their frustrations. Suddenly, a soft gasp broke the stillness. Young Thomas, a boy of perhaps 12, stepped forward. He had been bedridden for weeks, his fever ravaging his small frame. "Miss Margaret," he implored, his voice shaking but filled with courage. "I heard you outside my window yesterday. You prayed for me while I couldn't even lift my head. I felt something change. Can prayer really help me?" The room seemed to hold its breath. Margaret looked into Thomas' bright, hopeful eyes, tears brimming her own. "Yes, dear child, prayer can heal. It is the touch of love and faith that brings miracles to life." The villagers exchanged glances, the skepticism beginning to erode. One by one, their hearts softened. The warmth of connection grew as they shared their own stories of small miracles and unexpected kindness on a hard day. A stranger's smile that brightened a gloomy moment, and even the grip of hope that hadn't let go. The divine danced in their midst, uniting those who had been separated by fear. Margaret recognized that this gathering wasn't about her. It was about the collective spirit of the community igniting their faith. Hand in hand, they began to pray aloud, voices mingling in the chapel, a chorus of hope, healing, and love. But in the midst of this sacred camaraderie, Margaret felt a sudden tug on her spirit, a visionary whisper that pulled her away from the moment. It was a revelation, urging her to venture beyond the chapel, to the heart of the village. With a sense of urgency, she realized they needed to act, to bring this collective faith into the world. If they could step forward together, their newfound hope could illuminate the darkest corners of Wellingford. As she prepared to share this thought, a gentle breeze flowed through the open windows, carrying the distinct scent of blooming flowers, signs of revival. "Are you ready?" she breathed, sensing the shadows lingering on the edges of their hearts. "Together we can become instruments of healing." The moment felt charged with possibility. The village stood on the brink of transformation. Would they step into the light together, embracing faith and love? The question hung in the air, a beckoning call for the next step. But what awaited them on this journey, and how deep could their faith take them? Margaret felt the pull of destiny, a divine mystery waiting to unfold. Margaret's heart raced, the urgency pulsing within her. She discerned the collective breath of the villagers, sensing their unspoken fears and newfound hope. The chapel, filled with flickering candlelight, became a sacred space, not just for individual prayer, but for the community to rise together. Each face reflected fragments of the love that had dispelled their doubts. "Let us take our faith from this holy place," she urged, her voice vibrant and clear. "We have felt that flicker of hope together, and now we can shine it brightly into our village. Each act of kindness, every prayer, will be our light in the dark." The crowd murmured in agreement, the shadows of doubt slowly dissolving like mist under the morning sun. Margaret noticed old Mrs. Harris at the back, her eyes glistening with tears of joy. "Yes, dearie," the old lady chimed, her crooked finger trembling with excitement. "We must show our neighbors how love changes everything." With hearts beating in synchrony, they stepped outside the chapel into the waning light. The streets of Wellingford awaited them with open arms. Margaret led the way, her faith igniting a spark in everyone who followed. Each step felt like a guiding thread weaving them together into a tapestry of hope. As they ventured deeper into the village, the first stop was the village square, where the local baker, Mr. Worthington, was closing his shop. The familiar scent of fresh bread wafted through the air. Margaret felt the pull to approach him. "Mr. Worthington," she called, her voice ringing with intention. Would you share some bread with those who are in need today? The baker looked startled at first. Then, seeing the hopeful faces surrounding her, he broke into a warm smile. Of course, my dear. Bread made with love is always meant to be shared. He returned inside, the door jingling cheerily behind him in moments. He emerged with loaves piled high, and once again, faith had shaped reality. The villagers formed a line, not just to receive bread, but to share stories, smiles, and laughter. Margaret stood back, watching the unfolding of connections. Neighbor helped neighbor, hearts began to mend, and the village felt alive with the warmth of this shared experience. Look at us, said young Thomas, now emboldened at the front. Together we can do anything. His words sparked laughter, and even the village's usual skeptics couldn't help but smile. Margaret crossed her arms and breathed deeply, feeling a divine peace settle within her. But then the familiar tug came back, a longing, a whisper, urging her toward the edge of the village. Without thinking, she slipped through the crowd as they exchanged stories of kindness with one another. The edge of the village brought her to a small garden where wildflowers bathed under the glow of the last rays of light. It was a patch of land neglected for years, once vibrant but now overrun with weeds. Margaret's heart ached as she recalled how this garden could be a place of beauty, a sanctuary for all. As she knelt in the dirt, she began to pull weeds, envisioning the blooms that would one day prosper there. Each tug felt like releasing burdens, allowing faith to take root. Soon, the villagers noticed, gathering behind her, inspired by her example. "Let us help," shouted someone, and just like that, they carved their space into the earth, reclaiming life with every hand that dug into the soil. From that moment on, laughter filled the air as they worked together, chatting and sharing their hearts. Margaret stood back for a moment, amazed. What began as a quiet prayer had ignited a spark that swept through their village like wildfire. But just as the sun kissed the horizon and twilight descended, Margaret sensed a new shift. A soft voice, like a breeze, whispered into her spirit. It spoke of a deeper calling, a hidden message waiting to be unveiled at the heart of the garden. What awaited beyond the confines of the square and garden? What mysteries lie ahead in the embrace of this rejuvenated community? As they stepped further into faith together, only time would reveal the transformative journey unfolding before them. As twilight enveloped the village, the vibrant chatter of the crowd began to soften into a gentle hum. A palpable stillness rested upon the garden, with Margaret at its heart. Kneeling amidst the freshly turned earth, she felt the whisper within her soul grow stronger. It called to her, urging her to listen more closely. The villagers continued their work, but Margaret's gaze wandered to the wildflowers that swayed like dancers under the soft breeze. She closed her eyes for a moment, allowing the fading light to wash over her, the warmth reaching deep into her core. With each breath, she invited peace and clarity into her spirit, longing to uncover the hidden message that had stirred her heart. "Margaret!" A voice broke through her concentration. It was Emily, a young girl with bright curiosity sparkling in her eyes. "What do you hear? What does God say?" Margaret smiled at Emily, finding comfort in the child's innocent wonder. "I believe He wants us to know that we are never alone, and together we can cultivate something beautiful," she replied, her voice rich with conviction. Around them, others paused, curiosity weaving through the air like tendrils of an unbroken promise. Their hearts were open, each person sensing the importance of this moment. They leaned in closer, drawn by the intensity of connection that had blossomed between them. Margaret stood, dusting off her worn hands, and decided to share what was awakening within her. "When we gather and work as one, we're not just tending to this garden. We are sowing seeds of faith in our community. Each act of love, each small kindness, plants hope in the hearts of others." The villagers nodded, their spirits brightening, and they envisioned joy in the small gestures of their everyday lives, a wave to a neighbor, a helping hand, or simply a kind word exchanged. As darkness began to drape over the horizon, flickering stars appeared, gentle reminders of the divine presence that encircled them. Margaret felt a warmth rise in her chest. "There's something sacred waiting here," she said, looking around at the now eager faces. Something God is asking us to uncover together. But as she turned back toward the heart of the garden, an unexpected sight caught her eye. In the center of the plot, dimly illuminated by the remnants of sunlight, there appeared to be an object half buried, a glint that cut through the somber evening. A hush fell over the crowd as they shared knowing glances. Margaret felt a surge of electricity pulse through her. Boldly, she knelt again, scraping the dirt gently away with her fingers. The villagers crowded closer, excitement mingling with curiosity. Finally, the object emerged, a small, weathered box adorned with intricate carvings that told stories of ages past. The collective intake of breath was unmistakable, all weaved in every heart. What secret did this box hold? What revelations were nestled within its confines? Margaret's heart raced, not just with the thrill of discovery, but with the realization that in their unity and active love, they had unearthed not just a treasure, but perhaps a divine message meant for their revival. What could be inside? Someone whispered, eyes gleaming with anticipation. I don't know, Margaret breathed, feeling the weight of the moment pressing in. But I believe it holds the next step of our journey together. As she reached for the latch, hesitating for just a moment, an electric tension filled the air. Each villager held their breath, waiting for Margaret to reveal the unknown. What would they find, and how would it transform their faith and the fabric of their renewed community? With a heart full of hope, she opened the box, the air thick with potential. As the latch clicked open, a rush of energy coursed through the villagers. Margaret hesitated, her fingers poised above the box. In that sacred silence, a wave of anticipation engulfed the gathering. The air seemed charged, thick with the whispers of promises unseen. What lay within could change everything. With a swift motion, Margaret lifted the lid, and a gentle glow spilled forth, illuminating the faces around her. It was a mesmerizing sight, a tapestry of colors cascading from the box, light dancing like the flames of a warm fire. What was happening? Was this a mere reflection of the dying sunlight or something more divine? Margaret gazed inside. Nestled within a bed of soft, shimmering fabric lay ancient scrolls, their edges frayed yet filled with meticulous writing. They seemed to pulsate with life, beckoning her to read. One scroll stood out, its deep blue hue adorned with golden symbols that whispered secrets of the past. "Look!" Emily exclaimed, pointing with wide eyes. The villagers leaned closer, their collective breath caught in wonder. It was as if they were peering into the very heart of their history, bound by the sacred connection of shared faith. Margaret's fingers trembled as she retrieved the scroll, compelled to unravel its mystery. She could feel the weight of her ancestors' hopes resting on her shoulders. Would she be worthy of this discovery? With a deep breath, she began to unfurl it. As the scroll opened, words began to swim into view, vibrant and alive. In solitude, we find our deepest truths. The quiet whispers of God reveal where we go and who we truly are. Each line unfurled more deeply profound revelations about communion with God, about the importance of stepping back from the noise of life to hear His voice. The crowd erupted in murmurs. Some nodded in understanding, while others looked at each other, reflecting on the weight of those words. It was as though a veil had lifted, revealing the essence of their shared journey, the divine calling for stillness amidst their labor. God is inviting us to seek Him in quiet moments, Margaret shared, her voice now steady and vibrant, to find strength in silence, to let the garden within us blossom. Hope glimmered in the eyes of her fellow villagers. They realized this box was not merely a treasure of the past. It was a beacon for their futures. It called them to reclaim their spiritual rhythm, to weave sacred solitude into the fabric of their lives. As the sun dipped lower and painted the horizon in strokes of crimson and gold, a soft breeze echoed the sentiment of unity that now bound them. Each of us is called, Margaret continued, to seek that sacred space, to hear Goddess whispers anew. Yet, amid their collective excitement, a weighty question loomed, heavy and profound. As the last light of day flickered, would they have the courage to heed this call? Could they truly embrace the solitude that would lead to deeper connection with God and each other? In that moment of reflection, with hearts opened wide, They knew they stood at the threshold of transformation. The box, now closed but filled with the vibrancy of divine revelation, beckoned them to step forward together, and Margaret felt within her spirit a longing. A new question begotten by this extraordinary moment: what would they discover about themselves and their Creator if they journeyed beyond the familiar and created space for the sacred? The anticipation brewed, as if opening another chapter of their lives awaited. As the villagers stood in awe, the energy of the moment resonated in their hearts. Margaret sensed a stirring within them, a thirst for understanding, a yearning to explore the divine mysteries laid before them. In the setting sun's warm embrace, she felt a sacred connection take root among her friends and family, binding them closer than ever. Together, Margaret began, her voice infused with warmth. We must journey into this solitude. It's not just about seeking silence. It's about discovering who God says we are. The murmurs grew more fervent, excitement igniting like kindling by the fire. Each villager felt a flicker of determination. They were not merely witnesses to this moment, but participants in a divine invitation. Suddenly, old Mr. Thompson stepped forward, his weathered hands gripping the edge of the wooden box. I've spent many nights under the stars, searching for meaning, he said, his voice gravelly yet full of sincerity. But it was in the stillness that I felt his presence the most. We should embrace this call to solitude. It's there we encounter his love. Nods of agreement rippled through the gathered crowd. It was as if their hearts beat in sync, drawing strength from one another. Margaret felt their anticipation swell like the tide, ready to push forth into uncharted waters. I believe, she continued, that each of these scrolls holds a key, a glimpse into the divine truth we've been longing to understand. With reverence, she held up the scroll she had unfurled earlier, golden symbols glittering against the twilight sky. Let us not wait. Let us read together and discover what God has in store. She gestured for Emily to come closer. I see something in your eyes. Share what you sense. Emily stepped forward, her enthusiasm infectious. It's like we're all connected, as if these words can breathe life into our dreams. Solitude is not just an absence, but a space where we can find courage to become who we were made to be. Such clarity was refreshing, and it swept through the villagers, a gentle wind carrying them toward deeper reflections. One by one, they began to raise their voices, sharing how they longed for moments of quiet to reconnect with God, the warmth of His presence igniting their souls. The scroll is a messenger, Margaret declared, feeling a soft urgency within her spirit. What if it reveals the path to healing, to hope we've often overlooked in the clamor of daily life? A collective gasp filled the air as the reality of her words settled in. Could this simple prayer be the very lifeline they all needed? In that moment, a calm silence enveloped them, heavy with possibilities. It was the tranquil pause just before a revelation. Emily spoke softly. What if we dedicated time, just moments each day, to sit and listen, to embrace solitude as a sacred practice? The crowd hushed in reverence, pondering the power of stillness. Margaret nodded, feeling the pull of their shared yearning. Each of us can start right here, right now. Let us promise to carve out those moments, to return to this place, to listen for Goddess whispers in the quiet. They stood united, hearts beating as one, a tapestry of hope and faith interwoven with every word spoken. With evening settling in, an air of anticipation filled the space. With their commitment to solitude laid bare, the villagers felt drawn not only to inner peace, but also to a journey that lay ahead. What miracles would unfold in the sacredness of their newly carved time with God? The scrolls would guide them, and together they would unravel truths beyond imagination. But what awaited them as they stepped boldly into this practice? The light of a cool moon rose above them, beckoning the night to reveal its secrets, and in that lingering darkness, their search for the divine was just beginning. The stars shone brightly, illuminating the village and creating a serene backdrop for the villagers' new commitment. As the moon cast its gentle glow, each heart felt lighter, as though the very air pulsed with divine anticipation. Margaret gathered the scrolls, deeming them not mere artifacts, but vessels of profound wisdom to guide their souls. Let us begin, she declared, her voice steady with excitement. With care, she opened the first scroll. The golden symbols flowed like rivers of light, and as the intricate design unwound, a hush fell over the crowd. Their breaths intertwined as they leaned in, each yearning for the revelations that awaited them. "Listen closely," Margaret instructed, the energy surging among them like a current. "This first message speaks of inner peace and how it is birthed from stillness." The villagers exchanged glances, sensing the truth in those words. Mr. Thompson whispered, "How often do we allow the noise of the world to drown out his voice?" Emily nodded in agreement, her excitement blooming anew. "To find true peace, we must quiet our restless hearts and turn our attention toward him." The first revelation struck like a bell ringing in the stillness, a call to pause, to breathe, to honor that sacred space within. Without waiting for more, each villager mentally committed to that practice. They felt as if God was initiating them into a journey of profound discovery. Margaret read on, her voice weaving a fabric of faith over the gathered listeners. This scroll shares a truth about connections, how solitude invites deeper understanding of community. As the words washed over them, a palpable warmth enveloped the villagers. They recalled how the chaos of life sometimes pulled them apart. But in moments of solitude, alongside God, they could truly see one another, their hearts, their burdens, their joys. Oh, how Margaret longed for a community that thrived together in love, understanding, and support. This revelation sang in harmony with their unspoken desires, wrapping around them like a comforting embrace. "What else?" came a voice from the crowd, breaking the stillness. A ripple of eagerness spread through the villagers, urging Margaret to continue. "The next truth speaks of divine clarity," she shared, excitement bubbling in her chest. "When we step into quietness, we see the world through God's eyes. Decisions become clearer, dilemmas resolve. God gives us wisdom in that sacred stillness." Nods of comprehension danced across the crowd. Here was a promise they could grasp, a hope for guidance amidst confusion. Moved, individuals began to share their personal struggles, seeking understanding. The honesty swirled in the air, knitting threads of compassion, vulnerability, and sincerity into their collective tapestry. Margaret, witnessing this unfolding spirit of connection and healing, guided them gently. "Continue to seek this solitude. Allow your hearts to be anointed in his peace. What if we committed to gathering as one, sharing these truths from the scrolls?" The villagers echoed her sentiment, a chorus of agreement infused with reverence. They could feel the tangible presence of God hovering around them, beckoning them to draw nearer. "Tomorrow, at dawn," Margaret proposed, excitement spilling from her lips, "we will meet here again and share our insights, our revelations. Through our solitary moments, we will come together, renewed by what we discover." With that, the evening began to wind down. Hearts were ignited with fresh hope and renewed purpose. Each villager, filled with wonder, departed to embrace solitude as a sacred tool, a means to commune intimately with God. As the moon loomed high in the sky, Margaret lingered, deep in prayer. "Lord," she whispered, "as we step into this practice, reveal more of your heart to us, guide us into these mysteries." In the stillness of the night, unseen whispers danced around her, promising a deeper understanding yet to unfold. What truths awaited them, and how would they change their lives forever? That lingering question hovered in the air as dawn approached. As dawn broke, the first rays of light spilled over the village, bathing it in a golden warmth that seemed to echo the anticipation in each villager's heart. Margaret arrived early, her spirit buoyed by the night's prayer, eager to witness the fruit of their solitary journeys. One by one, they gathered, their faces glowing with a mixture of excitement and serenity. The air hummed with a sense of sacred possibility. Margaret smiled as she looked at her friends. "Good morning, everyone. The peace we sought last night is tangible among us today." They settled on the familiar grass, forming a circle with the scrolls at the center, a sacred hub of their shared journey. Margaret opened the second scroll, the symbols shimmering as though alive with energy. "Today we explore surrender," Margaret said, her voice steady and inviting. "This is not just letting go of our burdens. It's embracing His will over our own, trusting his wisdom even when the path is unclear. The villagers listened intently, the gravity of her words sinking deep within them. Old Mrs. Hughes leaned forward, her hands trembling slightly. I always thought surrender was giving up, but if it's about trusting him, then perhaps it's about strength, not weakness. Margaret nodded in agreement. Exactly. It's a powerful act of faith. When we surrender, we open ourselves to be led by his light, clearing the way for divine miracles. I felt that yesterday. Young David chimed in, his youthful face glowing with newfound understanding. I let go of my worries about the harvest. I prayed, and suddenly, I felt peace. I knew I was not alone in this. Warmth surged through the circle. Each soul resonated with David's testimony, sharing their own stories of surrender, the burdens released, the fears quelled, and the sense of belonging that followed as they shared. Margaret gently unfolded the next layer of wisdom. The scroll speaks of trusting the process. This journey we're on may not always match our plans, but each step we take in faith is moving us closer to him. A comforting silence enveloped them, as if time itself stood still. Hushed breath paired with golden reflections flowed around the gathering, a collective recognition of their lives and journeys unfolding under his watchful gaze. Suddenly, Emily raised a hand, her eyes bright with inspiration. What if we kept a journal, documenting our solitude and the revelations we find? It could be a map of our faith journey, a guide through our struggles and victories. Applause erupted, enthusiasm ricocheting off the dewy grass. They all agreed, eager to not only listen to their hearts, but to reflect on the divine messages they received. Each shared moment was solidifying their bond, nurturing a community rooted deeply in faith. Margaret noticed a change in the atmosphere. There was a growing attentiveness, a sacred curiosity enveloping them. And let us not forget, she continued, to welcome each other as truths without judgment, creating a safe haven for our stories. Here we reflect God's love. As they embraced this challenge, a soft wind whispered through the trees, a gentle reminder of the Spirit at work among them. It felt as if the very essence of hope danced in the air. Let us take a moment, Margaret suggested, to go into silence now. We'll reflect and commune with God, allowing our hearts to be full, ready to receive. As the quiet settled over them, a divine tranquility emerged. Eyes closed, breaths synchronized. They became a symphony of united spirits, open and expectant. In this moment, they were not just villagers. They were seekers of the sacred. What would each heart discover in that stillness? What new wisdom awaited them in the gentle caress of his presence? As they emerged from their silence, Marlena, usually reserved, held a hand to her heart. I heard a word, abundance. Felt like a promise. Margaret felt the pulse of excitement swell within her as they prepared to share again. This was just the beginning. How deeply could they journey together? What would the next scroll reveal about the ultimate purpose of solitude? As the murmur of excitement settled, Margaret noticed the glimmer of understanding in her friend's eyes. It was as if the very essence of their journey unfolded with each revelation. The scroll before them held not just ink and parchment. It contained a treasure of divine wisdom, a key to the mysteries they all sought. Abundance, she repeated softly, allowing the word to dance on her tongue. What a magnificent concept. It feels like a promise of not just material gifts but of spiritual richness. Let us ponder this further. What do you think abundance means in our lives? The villagers began to open up, their words flowing like a river of thought. I believe, David declared, that abundance is the love and support we find in each other. When we share our hearts, we overflow with blessings. Indeed, Emily added, her voice ringing with conviction. When we give without reserve, we receive so much more, a sense of belonging, joy, and gratitude. An encouraging hum resonated through the circle, every word a testament to their growing understanding. Mrs. Hughes leaned back, a smile creeping onto her weathered face. It's more than just what we see. It's the peace that fills our hearts, even amidst trials. I've felt that peace when I've surrendered my worries to God. Margaret lifted her hands, commanding a gentle silence once more. Yes, just think, when we embrace His will, we open ourselves to divine abundance? What if we believed that we are inherently worthy of His grace? What if surrender led not to loss but to the fullness of His promise? The air thickened with a beautiful tension, as if heaven itself hovered nearby, poised to send down the next revelation. Marlena, still clutching her heart, spoke again. I think abundance is also about healing of hearts, of relationships. When we allow God to work through our struggles, I senti that why we seek solitude. To find wholeness? Margaret felt the power of her friend's words. Absolutely. In our separation, we discover connection not just with Him but with each other. It's the solitude that shapes our spirit and teaches us to reach out in love. Our struggles become the very soil from which abundance blossoms. They nodded, the villagers sharing knowing glances. Inspiration swirled among them. They could feel the sacred nature of longing, the desire for closeness with God and each other. Shall we write down our thoughts? Emily suggested, the spirit of initiative igniting in her eyes. Let us create a collective journal, a living testament to our faith journey. Each word will be a reflection of our growth, a celebration of the abundance we discover. As Margaret distributed their new journals, each villager could feel electricity coursing through them. They were walking deeper into their faith collectively, yet the draw of their personal revelations was equally potent. Marlena, scribbling fervently, stopped to gaze at her friends. What if in every moment of solitude, we find new abundance, a new blessing to share? How can we encourage each other in this discovery? Letting go of our fears and opening our hearts to revelation is essential, Margaret affirmed, excitement bubbling in her chest. Every challenge is an opportunity, a divine invitation to explore. Suddenly, a gentle rustling of leaves caught their attention. The wind carried with it an unexpected message, as if the universe itself had paused to listen. Do you feel that? Whispered David, his expression wide with awe. Yes. Margaret beamed. It's the breath of God, guiding our thoughts. We are not alone, nor have we been abandoned. He walks with us every step of the way. What other lessons await us in the dance of solitude? As the villagers leaned in closer, captivated, Margaret felt a surge of divine anticipation. The next scroll, glowing with hidden promise, awaited their eager hearts. What would it reveal? The promise of faith lined with abundance, beckoning for deeper exploration. What fresh wisdom would they unearth together in their next gathering? As dawn broke once more over Wellingford, a new light filled the villagers' hearts, a radiant promise of hope and unity. Margaret stood amongst her companions, the morning sun a brilliant witness to their shared journey. Each villager carried a newfound excitement, eager to unveil more from the sacred scrolls gathered around her. Good morning, everyone, Margaret called, her voice as vibrant as the dawn. Today, we continue to explore the wisdom contained within these scrolls. She sensed the anticipation dance among them, thick and electric, a palpable love renewing every soul. With reverence, she opened the next scroll, revealing intricate symbols shimmering like dew-kissed petals. The scroll spoke clearly, visibly alive in their presence. In embracing gratitude, we unlock the doors to joy. The message resonated deeply, wrapping each villager in a warm embrace of familiarity. Gratitude, young Emily exclaimed, her eyes sparkling. It's about seeing the little blessings every day, the smiles, the laughter, the warmth of sunlight on our skin. How can we practice gratitude together? Margaret's heart swelled as she listened to her friends. Yes, let us create a gratitude wall in the village square. We can write our blessings there for all to see, she proposed, her voice steady with excitement. Each idea blossomed, a beautiful exchange of thoughts connecting their hearts further. With a flurry of enthusiasm, they began to jot down blessings on colorful pieces of paper, each note torn from the fabric of their lives, a neighbor's kindness, a moment of laughter, faith abounding in difficult times. By noon, the wall stood vibrant with colors, revealing their hearts and weaving a tapestry of shared gratitude. What happens when we embrace these blessings? Margaret asked, her eyes sparkling. When we let gratitude guide our actions. The villagers pondered, eyes alight with the possibilities unfolding. I think we can spread joy, David shouted, his spirit shining. What if we held a gratitude festival to celebrate each person's contributions to our lives? We can share food, laughter, music light filling the dark corners. Yes. The villagers cheered, a chorus of eager spirits rising up. Their anticipation melded into a vision of bringing the community together, hearts intertwined, laughter ringing out in vibrant celebration, as they moved about with joyful purpose. Margaret felt the whispers of the spirit weave through their intimate gathering. Yet, with one more scroll awaiting her attention, she paused, a gentle pull beckoning her to explore deeper. Let us take a moment, she suggested softly, wanting to ground their excitement in reflection, to listen for what God has to say about our gratitude. They settled into silence, hearts pulsing in harmony as they contemplated the divine teachings. In the stillness, Margaret sensed an overwhelming love wash over them, filling her soul with a message. Your gratitude creates space for miracles. With tears glistening in her eyes, she felt an awakening. The path unfolding before them was not merely through celebrations, but in the quiet reverence of shared gratitude and love, transforming their mundane into the miraculous. The villagers began to whisper amongst themselves, reflecting on how gratitude had already transformed their lives, how acts of kindness had sprung forth from simple exchanges of gratitude. Margaret's heart soared, witnessing their eyes widen as they embraced this new dawning truth. Now, she finally exclaimed, interrupting the tide of hopeful conversation, let us dive into the next scroll. She opened it carefully, revealing words that echoed heavenly grace. In community, we find our strength. Heads nodded as the words resonated with the core of their recent experiences. Yes, we are stronger together, cried old Mrs. Hughes, her voice shaking with empathy. In each other's stories, we find our own. Margaret felt the power of their shared connections rise within them, like a swell of faith uniting in one purpose. Let us commit to not only lifting each other's burdens but celebrating each other's victories. Our stories interwoven create a legacy of love. The villagers erupted in applause, voices mingling in joy. They began to envision community service projects together, helping the elderly, tending to gardens, sharing meals with those in need. Margaret felt exhilarated listening to their ideas, their vigor renewing her own spirit as they painted a tapestry of a thriving community. As evening began to cascade across the sky, the villagers gathered once more, each heart fluttering in anticipation. Here lay their essences, transformations of faith and love woven within shared solitude, gratitude, and newfound connections. In that sacred circle, Margaret radiated a divine peace. Let us close by remembering this sacred moment, she said. Let us vow to carry these intentions into our daily lives, nurturing gratitude and connection as part of our everyday existence. With hands joined, they proclaimed their vows, an echo of faith resounding against the fading light. We step forward, committed to practice solitude, gratitude, and unity, transcending darkness with love. As night embraced Wellingford, Margaret looked upon her community, her heart overwhelmed with gratitude. They had unearthed not only sacred scrolls, but profound truths that threaded their lives together in an unbreakable bond of faith. This was just the beginning of their divine journey together. As the stars shone overhead, she felt the rush of divine grace, a promise echoing across the heavens. The Spirit had begun a work within them, one that would grow, flourish, and resound through Wellingford, transforming not only their own lives, but touching the world beyond. Together, they would illuminate the darkness with their love, walking forward in faith, welcomed by the divine embrace of sacred solitude. You need to subscribe now to this channel and be part of more miraculous faith stories like this one. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. It truly makes a difference. Comment your reactions and testimonies about this powerful conclusion. We want to hear your stories. And please, share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness this divine manifestation. This is the moment to show your support for the ministry. Don't wait even one more second. God bless you.